more times. Give me a second. Let's see. Divide by 7. Multiply by 3. Winter solstice. I've gone over this pocket buying calendar I don't know how many times. And it all adds up. It was all supposed to happen on the 21st day of December, 2012. It's clear. And you know what? It wasn't just the calendar. There's this too. Did you know that on the 21st of December, that the sun was supposed to come in perfect position vis-a-vis the black hole at the center of the galaxy, and it's all here right on the star chart, and the Earth was going to be stuck right in the middle, and we'd be torn apart by the gravitational pull. Oh, and did you see these numbers? Apparently the magnetic force of the Earth has been going down for years now, and on the 21st of December, a solar flare was going to make the polarity of the Earth reverse, causing cataclysms everywhere. It all added up. Now I know, of course, if I'd asked a geologist, or an astrophysicist at NASA, or an expert on Mayan culture and religion, they would have told me that that was all bunk. But I didn't ask them, did I? No, I asked the internet. I asked those mystics at the sacred mountain in France, and the answer was clear. And then the day came. Friday, December 21st, 2012. And it was a day like pretty much every other day. And the day went by, and we woke up on the 22nd and opened our eyes and looked around, and the world was pretty much as it had always been. What do you do then? What do you do when you expect the world to change, the old age to come to an end, the new one to begin, and nothing really changes? Well, if you think that we are the first people in the history of the world to deal with that problem, you got another thing coming. And in a way, when you think about it, the Christian church itself, Christian faith, was born out of that problem. The expectation at the end of the world that didn't quite materialize as they expected. For long before Jesus of Nazareth was born in Bethlehem, the Jewish people, the people of the faith of Abraham, had lived in an expectation. For they had struggled in this world. They had struggled with many enemies and many oppressors, and the world was so bad sometimes that they hoped and dreamed of someone who would come and change all of that. And the one they expected, they called the Messiah, which means the Anointed One. The one specially designated and gifted by God to change all of that. And there's something about that kind of expectation, isn't there? There's something about the expectation of a transformative figure. Now, the kind of expectations around him were varied. Different prophets saw the coming Messiah in different ways. Some saw him coming as a vengeful warrior who would defeat their enemies with the sword. Some saw him coming as a great mediator who would bring together the nations of the world in peace and create a harmony and prosperity that would be for all. But there was no question that he would change things. He would transform things. And that was a powerful idea. And Jewish people, down through the ages and right up to date, have used that expectation to spur themselves on, to work in this world, for justice and righteousness, for all that is good and right in this world. Because they said, well, Messiah is coming, we need to prepare the world, we need to prepare ourselves for his arrival. And great things have been done in the name of that expectation. But that in itself created a little bit of an issue, a bit of a problem. Because there were some who began to say that the expectation of the Messiah was even more important than his arrival. For while you are expecting him, you could work. You could use that expectation to create justice, to create goodness, to prepare the world for his arrival. There was so much to do, so good to do. But then when he arrived, he kind of wrecked everything. Because you see, then justice was done. The work was completed. There was nothing left to strive for, nothing left to hope for. History ended when he came. And so in a sense, it was almost like he ruined it by arriving. At least that is how some Jews came to see the issue. And this problem actually became very acute for the Christian church. Because, of course, when Jesus of Nazareth showed up on the scene, those Jews who came to be called Christians looked at him and saw in him the fulfillment of all those expectations that were associated with Messiah. And it began, we are told in the Gospel of Luke, right from the very beginning. When Jesus was a mere infant, only 8 days old, we're told that his parents took him to the temple in Jerusalem for a rite of purification. And there was a man there, a man named Simeon, a good and righteous man, it says. And above all, a man who was looking forward to the consolation of Israel. You know what that means? That means that he was living in the expectation of the Messiah. That Messiah would come. And he had devoted his life to working towards and preparing the world and himself for the coming of Messiah. Had done much good in the name of that. And what's more, he had been given a message from God that he would see the Messiah with his own eyes. I mean, that's almost as good as getting a Mayan calendar with the date of the end of the world marked right on it. Except in his case, it was true. And so, Simeon took one look at this child, this 8-day-old child, and he said, wow, this is it. And then he said something really crazy. He turned and he prayed to God and he said, Lord, now let your servant depart in peace. In other words, he said, my work here is done. Everything I've done in expectation of the Messiah, all the righteousness, all the justice, all the goodness, it's completed. He's here. I'm done. God, I'm taking off. I can die now. The work is done. And you think that's crazy for Simeon to say? Just look at what his mother Mary said. Even crazier. For she had merely felt the movement of the child Jesus within her womb, a mere flutter. And she turned to God and she said that it was all done. She said the mighty and powerful are brought down from their thrones, the lowly are lifted up, the hungry are filled with good things, the rich are sent away empty. She was saying that even though Jesus was no bigger than an acorn within her belly, it was all done. The world had been changed. The world order had been taken and turned upside down because Messiah had come. So the expectations were clear. Messiah had come in Jesus. And if they were clear to Simeon and if they were clear to Mary, they were all that more clear to Jesus' disciples after Jesus had risen from the dead. But there was a problem, wasn't there? For those disciples looked around after they had experienced the resurrection of Jesus. They looked around and they saw the world, and the world hadn't changed all that much. For the rich were still in their thrones, sitting in them very comfortably, thank you. And the hungry were still hungry. They are still hungry to this day. The world hadn't changed. What do you do? What do you do when you wake up on the morning of the 22nd of December and you open your eyes and you're expecting everything to change and the world's still there and nothing has changed? What do you do? Now, following this latest failure in doomsday prophecy, I'm sure many people will. Let's say, give it up. You know, the prophecy was wrong, or we misunderstood it, whatever it is, but they'll just leave it and move along, go on with their lives. That's not what the church did. Now, what the church did was this. They said, we know that the Messiah has come. We know that the new day is dawned, and if it's not changed out there in the world yet, that's because the work isn't done and Jesus will come back and do it. But in the meantime, it has begun. It has begun because the new kingdom, the kingdom of God, this new world order that Jesus had announced, they knew had arrived. Because it had arrived in here, in their hearts. They knew it had arrived because it had arrived in the Christian community, in the way they lived together. The kingdom had come. The new age had dawned. And because it had dawned in here and in here, they knew it would come out there. And they would be part of making that happen. And so in a way, you might say that Christians have always been a people who woke up on the 22nd of December and looked around and saw the world. We have that today in common with a lot of people around the globe. We're living in the aftermath of the end of the world. But we know something that they don't know. We know the secret that Mary felt in the flutter in her womb. We know the secret that Simeon saw in the eyes of an 8-day-old child. That the new day has dawned. It has dawned in here. It has dawned in here. And so we know that it will come out there. So, December 21st, 2012 has come and gone. The world did not end, the age did not come to a close. What do we do with that? Now, we could turn it into a joke. We could turn it into a reason to laugh at those who were expecting it all to happen just because of the date on the calendar. But you know what? I'm not inclined to do that. Not really. Because that expectation that the world should change, that old ways of being should end, is a good impulse. It is an impulse that God has put into all of us on purpose. Yes, getting fixed on certain dates and certain calculations is a mistake, but the expectation is the right one. Because we have a God who is still alive, still at work in this world. And his kingdom has come. We know it's come because it's coming here. Because it's coming here. So we know it will come and that we can be part of it. This is a powerful notion for me on this day. As I think back to the terrible events that took place in Newtown, Connecticut, just over a week ago. world not only is over, but the world should be over. The world should end. At least the world as we have known it. The world and its ways of dealing with violence and hatred, ways of dealing with things like mental illness and powerful weapons. That everything should be thrown back to the drawing board. It's time for that to end and we start all over again, and old ideas, old ways should die. The world should end. And many will say, and are saying, well, it can't change. Things can't change that much. It's not possible, but we know it is possible. We know it's possible because the change has begun in here. Because the change has begun in here. It will come out there and it will be part of it. This is our secure knowledge. This is the truth for the 23rd of December, 2012. Will you take a few moments in silence?